Hello? I'm gonna wait for y'all to come back in to the new stream. I'm sorry. I need to figure out a setting or something to keep it, to let it reconnect to the same stream after this happens, because... But in the meantime, there's just gonna be like a stream part 1 and part 2. Hi, Blue. Good. You're here. You can hear me? Because I don't think the internet is... I don't know, it's been rainy out, but not super stormy, but it might be struggling a little, but like, my connection was really good up until the point that that happened. So I was not expecting that, but sometimes it does just like to cut off randomly. Uh, so, I don't really know where... I was kind of like reading and not looking up for a little while, so I don't know where... Um, hi, Rumi. Thank you. Um, Do you all remember, like, about what had just happened before it cut off? Because I top of 237. Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, wow. So you kind of missed. Yeah. Okay. Gumong. Oh, wait. Top of 237. Moshi just woke up. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, YouTube. Or thank you, my internet, for dying at the top of a page. Gumong. He sat bolt upright, agony tearing across his injuries. His long lashes fluttered down as he frowned, eyes closed tightly beneath his pitch-black brows. His movement had attracted notice. Someone hastily approached his sickbed. Modaga. Moshi pressed a hand to his forehead, kneading his aching temples. A pair of scarlet eyes met Murong Mengze's gaze. Mengze looked as if she hadn't taken proper care of herself in days. Her hair was pulled into the simplest of buns, and she wore her customary black robes with golden trim. At some point, she'd acquired a smudge of soot on her cheek. Moshi opened his mouth. His throat was painfully dry, and he swallowed with difficulty. Only then could he speak with something approaching his normal tone. What's going on? Where's Gumong? What happened with the demon blood beast? The Liao kingdom? Eyes moist, Mengze glanced around. She hardly needed to say it. From this look, Moshi could guess Chonghua's current circumstances. The largest healing pavilion in Shenong Terrace was filled with injured cultivators. Some bore spell injuries or blade wounds, while others had been infected with black magic and were bound with spirit-locking chains to icy stone beds. In one glance, he saw many faces he knew. In the distance, Yue Chunqing was speaking to a healer. A mere 2 weeks had passed since Moshi had last seen him, but Yue Chunqing no longer had the look of a youth. He frowned deeply, with no hint of mirth in his speech. Oh, I'm sorry, Rumi. I thought your message was saying I missed something, or you missed something about what happened to Moshi, but I think I'm good. We lost insight of what happened along with Moshi. Yeah. Yeah, we did. I guess we're gonna kind of get some backstory now. In the distance, Yue Chunqing was speaking to a healer. A mere 2 weeks had passed since Moshi had last seen him, but Yue Chunqing no longer had the look of a youth. And this makes me deeply sad. Um, he frowned deeply, with no hint of mirth in his speech. He was teaching the healers how to control his bamboo warriors, which could help in the chaos of these casualties. The power of the demon blood beast is free. After Jing Chen absorbed the spiritual energy, It flew toward the Liao kingdom and fulfilled Murong Chen's dying wish. Mengza's expression was unsightly on her lovely face. Since obtaining the demon blood beast's power, the Liao kingdom has become unstoppable. They've advanced to the walls of the capital city. Liange took command and has barely held them off for the last 7 days, but I'm afraid it won't last. We hear the Guoshe of the Liao kingdom is about to leave seclusion. He was finishing Jing Chen's new refinement. Tomorrow, the demon blood beast will likely walk the earth again. I've been asleep for 7 days? Asked Moshi. Mengza nodded, then hastily added upon seeing his expression. Don't worry. Though the situation is dire, our defeat isn't certain. Didn't Preceptor Chen put a stop to the demon blood beast's destruction back then? Liange is restructuring the military forces in the capital. He's preparing 3 major armies and planning to meet Liao in battle tomorrow. Moshi closed his eyes. It doesn't matter how capable Murong Lian is. He can't command 3 major armies at once. No general can hold down 3 separate formations. But you're awake now, aren't you? Mengza hesitated. You can command the scarlet-plumed battalion. Liange will lead his usual troop of cultivators. And as for the Northern Frontier Army... She pursed her lips, eyes flashing with inscrutable emotion. Moshi blinked in confusion. Then, as if his heart already knew the answer, it began to race in his chest. He stared into Mengza's eyes. What about the Northern Frontier Army? I have some good news. Mengza seemed afraid of dealing him any further shock and lowered her voice. It was no use. Her message was like a drop of water landing in roiling oil, inevitably causing a violent splatter. Gumang, he... Lips parted slightly. Moshi stared fixedly at her, his voice almost inaudible. He what? He's completely recovered. His reputation has been cleared after this calamity. He returned to his position as commander of the Northern Frontier Army 3 days ago, and right now, he's training with his soldiers on the drill ground in preparation for tomorrow's battle. Moshi froze. And that's the end of that chapter. Like, okay, so how did we recover now? That was that chapter was like a lot, but with that weird perspective of like, I don't know, it kind of in a way, it makes us feel like Moshi waking up. It's like you wake up and it's been 7 days and you're like, what the hell is going on? And someone is just like, oh yeah, he's all better now and he's leading the army again and everything's, yeah, it's all totally different. I would think that his health would have to be recovered somewhat because I'm thinking otherwise I don't know how he could lead the army if he was still having trouble remembering things. So something must have happened that made his souls come back or something. I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out. We're on page 241, which is your elder brother gives you the hero's ribbon. Heedless of his wounds, Moshi rushed to the drill ground. His conversation with Mengza echoed ceaselessly in his ears along the way. After Murong Chen shattered the soul box with his life, the demon blood beast's power scattered, and the soul Gumang had used to create the box also dispersed. According to all we know, a soul dispersed should fly into the vast world of the 9 provinces. It should be practically impossible to track down. But when we found you in the rubble of the Golden Terrace, it was hovering by your side, as if it retained some wisp of awareness and was guarding you within the debris. For a long time, Moshi was unable to speak. When he finally opened his mouth, his voice was unrecognizably hoarse. Then, what about the other soul? The soul he forged into the key for the soul box. Hadn't Murong Lian destroyed it? Lian Ge didn't destroy it. He was lying. Think about it. If Gumong created this key with the intention to have it destroyed, why bother with it in the first place? He could have just made the soul box impossible to open. At that time, Murong Chen was already mad, and the situation was volatile. He didn't notice the gaps in Liange's story, and neither did you nor I. Afterward, Liange told me that when Gumong gave him the key, he had, in fact, not asked him to destroy it, but to find some way to annihilate the power of the demon blood beast. He hoped that if Liange succeeded, he would open the box with the key and end the demon blood beast once and for all. General Gu has always been cautious in his dealings. He knew sealing the demon blood beast's power was different from destroying it. It's unfortunate Liange was so suspicious of General Gu's intentions and wasn't earnest in his investigation. When he did believe General Gu later, he had no chance to continue researching. After everything General Gu sacrificed, the power of the demon blood beast was still released. Murong Mengzi closed her eyes and sighed. Liange hasn't said so, but I can tell. He blames himself. Moshi's head was ringing. He was still in poor condition. Though he hadn't been the one to end Murong Chen, his actions had still violated the vow of calamity. The backlash from the oath hadn't killed him, but his injuries were severe enough to render him unconscious for a full 7 days after the battle at the Golden Terrace. Yet it seemed his mind would always be clear when Gumong was concerned, no matter how exhausted or debilitated he was, just as Gumong's soul had hovered around Moshi to protect him even when it was scattered. Their enduring bond was an instinctive habit for both of them. Moshi was only silent for a moment before he picked out the relevant details from his memories. It was the thumb ring, he said. What? The key was the thumb ring Murong Lian wore, Moshi muttered. That's why Murong Lian gave him the ring when Zhou He wanted to destroy his mind. He knew it contained one of Gumong's souls, so it would help Gumong hold out longer. Hi, Henry. Oh, you caught up. Also, hi, Aspen. I saw you in there earlier. And no worries about a spoiler. You said something, but I didn't even really register it, so, like, don't even worry about it. And Nina was right. Yeah, you were right about the ring. That's why every time Gumong's dog saw Murong Lian, he acted like he was seeing Gumong himself. He always liked to sniff the hand with the thumb ring. Moshi's lips trembled slightly. He found he couldn't go on. So this was the truth. He had always felt the path he and Gumong had taken was paved with too much suffering. When he had heard Murong Lian say in the throne room that one of Gumong's mortal souls had already been destroyed at his hands, Moshi had felt he might break down then and there. But although he understood Gumong would never recover, he had still given everything to stop Murong Chen from shattering the soul box. Beyond wanting to protect Chonghua, he had selfishly hoped there might be some method of retaining at least that one mortal soul within the box. Even if Gumong would never be whole, it was better than nothing. He had struggled until he bled and bled again. Everything he'd experienced over the past 3 decades had taught him that asking for wholeness was too much. He would be content with shattered fragments. Ouch. He was willing to spend the rest of his life piecing those shards back together, and would be satisfied with completion of this sort. But this time, for the first time, it was as if the heavens had witnessed his suffering and returned him something whole. Two mortal souls. Gumong's two mortal souls were still here. He had them back, and he was fully recovered. Moshi walked faster and faster on the road to the drill ground. By the time he reached the field and saw that figure standing amid thousands, his vision was blurred with tears. Very rarely did Moshi cry from sadness, but right now he was happy. The general of the Northern Frontier Army had finally returned. His Gumong Goga, that unbroken, brilliantly smiling, invincible General Gu who brought hope to countless men, had finally returned. Moshi had never dared ask for anything extravagant, yet fate had finally bestowed upon him the most beautiful dream of his life. No, it wasn't a dream. It was real. Those remnants of filth had been washed away. Gumong was no longer a traitor, a villain, or a spy. Oh, did I freeze? Oh, no. Okay. What the heck? Hello, am I back? I'm just lagging. Oh, hold on. Let's see if it lags again. Hopefully not. Where? What you said, what did fate bestow upon him? Okay. Yet fate had finally taken pity on him and bestowed upon him the most beautiful dream of his life. No, it wasn't a dream. It was real. Those remnants of filth had been washed away. Gumong was no longer a traitor, a villain, or a spy. He was a general who could stand tall in the daylight, beneath the scarlet army flags whipping above him in the wind, and gaze down from the command platform with his hands behind his back, watching the drill ground full of armor, bright in the sun. Roll credits. Exactly. So I went back far enough, right? But yeah, the title has been said. The remnants of filth are washed away. We're ending the book right here. His Gu Shishong had been through so many trials and tribulations. His hands and feet scraped raw. He'd endured no end of suffering and humiliation, experienced untold sorrow and separation, and finally returned to the place he most belonged, standing before his troops as the finest general of Chonghua. Some low-level cultivators saw Moshi standing at the edge of the drill ground and called out, "Ah, it's General Mo. General Mo is here. Shihajun is here." That movement was like wind over a lake's surface, spreading all the way to the command platform. Gumong's head was turned, speaking to Murong Lian. Upon noticing this ripple, he squinted towards its source, the noon sun and strong wind at his back. Across the sea of dark helms and glinting weapons, he saw Moshi. Gumong looked startled for a moment. Then a smile bloomed across his face. Those black irises were gone forever, but his blue eyes were every bit as bright as when he'd served in the cavalry with Moshi in their youth. He raised a hand and waved energetically at Moshi beneath the billowing flags of the Northern Frontier Army. Rumi, I'm also worried. It feels too good. General Mo, he shouted, with the playfulness of a child and the gentleness of an elder brother. Get up here. You've slept so long. You're the last to arrive. The Northern Frontier Army that Moshi had disciplined for so many years, those soldiers who seemed to have solemnity carved upon their bones, couldn't help bursting into laughter. Moshi suddenly realized that the troops hadn't changed at all. Under his command, they had long been obedient, but none of this solemnity was rightly theirs. The boldness and mirth given to them by their General Gu was the true soul of the Northern Frontier Army. Moshi blinked back the tears of happiness that threatened to slip out. He looked up. It wouldn't do to let the soldiers see him make a fool of himself. But as he walked to Gumong on the command platform, through the tide of soldiers that had parted to let him pass, he knew his tears were falling. He could never be solemn or cold anymore. He would feel hurt, sadness, and happiness. He would have all of the emotions belonging to a person of flesh and blood. On this day, the ice and snow melted away. All his happiness and sorrow remained hidden no longer. All of it was on display before his soldiers. Yet to his surprise, not a single person laughed at him. Those exuberant smiles were gradually brought in check. The men gazed intently at him, as if the barrier that had stood between them for years had shattered. A man with no fear of death shouted, "Shihajun, welcome home." The crowd was silent. Moshi made no sound. Then Gumong smiled and spoke from the high terrace. "General Mo, welcome home." Oh, you're joking. You're joking. Y'all, hold on. There is a full 2-page art. Okay? Like, had they ever done this before in the middle of the book? Oh, wait. I need to make sure I can see. Okay. Like, hello? I've never seen Seven Seas do this that I know of. That is... Wow, okay. That is too cute. Yes, this was home. It didn't need to be some building or tower, some pavilion or courtyard. Rather, it was being together with these people they protected, and who protected them in turn. It turned out they'd had a home from the day they first enlisted. General Gu, General Mo, Murong Lian, who wore an expression of complete impatience, but had absolutely no plans to leave. They had all come home. Rumi, YouTube is rejecting your comments. Shimei is here too. Also, Henry, yeah, good job becoming the #1 yapper, even though you were not here at the beginning. Preparations for the battle proceeded smoothly. How could they go otherwise, Moshi thought, as he looked at Gumong standing beside him. Where there was Gumong, there was heat and light. General Gu could rekindle a bonfire that had gone out. Everyone knew they were about to face a terrible catastrophe. Their opponents were the evil demon blood beast Preceptor Chen had sealed with his own life centuries ago, and that terrifying, devilish Guoshe, whose true identity no one knew. But Gumong seemed unaffected by this. Before his comrades, he appeared to have complete confidence in their victory. He possessed an extraordinary natural charisma that inspired those around him. His soldiers felt they could conquer any challenge and win any battle, so long as he was present. When the war council ended and the crowd dispersed, Gumong blinked at Moshi. Under the dimming sky, his eyes looked almost black. "Sorry I couldn't be by your side when you woke up." "No," Moshi replied. "You were always with me." Pausing, he added, Do you remember what happened at the Golden Terrace? That soul of yours. Gumong smiled. It had been too long since Moshi had seen this smile. Lively and bright, with the sharp little canine peeking out between his rosy lips. Hello? A hand appeared between them and waved. Excuse me, do you two think I'm dead? Turning, Gumong was met with Muronglian's infuriating visage. This man was suspicious, ruthless, underhanded, and egotistical by nature. Even now, when he realized how many mistakes he'd made, he couldn't give up his brash and arrogant attitude, much like how he couldn't quit the ephemera he'd learned to smoke out of necessity. Gumong grinned. What are you doing? Trying to tell you something. Muronglian's lordly attitude was the same as ever, but his shifting peach blossom eyes exposed his unease. What is it? Muronglian cleared his throat. This is for you. Okay, so the chapter title means Muronglian as the elder brother, I think is what's happening. He passed Gumong a blue and gold merit ribbon with exquisite embroidery. It was the one Murong Xuan had left behind. Muronglian spoke, his expression stiff. Wangshu Manor will always be mine, and I'll always be the head of the family. But regarding this, after giving it some thought, maybe, mind you, you might be better suited to wearing it than me. Gumong gazed down at the ribbon. In the tawny gold of the late afternoon sun, it was impossible to clearly make out his expression. When he looked up again, Muronglian had no chance to glimpse his face before Gumong suddenly reached out and pulled him into a hug. What the hell? Muronglian's arms were frozen awkwardly in the air, his pipe raised and disdain written all over his face. He looked like a wooden puppet with broken joints forced into a ridiculous pose. After a moment, he said gracelessly, "Don't expect me to personally tie it around your head." He was answered by Gumong's loud laughter. Life's too short to hold a grudge. If you tie it for me, I won't make a fuss about all the ways you screwed me over in the past. Muronglian shoved him. That's because you've been crafty and cunning since you were little. I couldn't trust you at all, he fumed. I should be the one making demands. How's this? If you keep calling me your lord, I'll deign to look out for you. Gumong rubbed the back of his neck. His slave collar had been removed. Both the one from Wangshu Manor years ago and the one from Shiha Manor, which came later, were gone. Patting his eyelashes, Gumong grinned at Muronglian. Liandi. In a fit of pique, Muronglian flung the blue and gold merit ribbon at Gumong's face. With a sweep of his sleeves, he turned on his heel and stalked off, muttering under his breath. That's the end of that chapter. I know that the good times at the moment are not, gonna last super long. Considering the next chapter title is Battle Begins. So we still have, a big road ahead of us. But I know we had a little bit of an accidental break, but it's time for me to take a real break. So when we come back, we will find out about the battle beginning. Blue, I'm sorry YouTube is denying you messages too. I don't know what it's doing today. Between my internet and YouTube, I don't know what's going on, but Hopefully it stays good now and also stops doing that. Um, so I will be back in about 10 minutes. And, yeah, fingers crossed that things are okay. But I can't really say that because of the meat bun book. It will stay good if it knows what's good for it. Exactly. Hello. I am back. And I was looking at some of the chat. I yeah, I think it is realistic the way that Murong Lian is acting. Like he's still gonna be prideful, but he's like begrudgingly trying to do nice things now, and it doesn't really make up for it, but like he's trying. Yeah, it does feel realistic to me, and I like the way that Meat Bun like deals with that sort of thing. Blue, Muranglian is realistically tsundere. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we are on page 251 for chapter 185, which is called Battle Begins. I guess this has to happen, you know? I guess we have to have the battle. We can't just put it off forever. It has to happen now. After nightfall, Gumong and Moshi walked side by side through the ruined interior of the imperial palace of Chonghua. The great sum of Murong Chen's nefarious deeds over the past few years had been revealed to the people, like a lavish robe flipped over to expose the crawling lice beneath, too loathsome to bear close examination. His madness had driven the capital into darkness and chaos. The halls they walked through were cluttered with shards of stone and brick, broken wood and shattered tile. As the two of them picked their way down the main walkway, Moshi asked, after the soul box shattered, "Who merged your two mortal souls?" "Murong Lian?" Gumong shook his head. "Su Yu Jiang Fuli's wife." So it was her. But she's had a lot on her mind the past few days. Medicine Master Jiang's whereabouts are still unknown. One would have thought he'd rushed back to Chonghua no matter how far he had traveled, given how severe this upheaval has been. Yes, but unfortunately he hasn't, Gumong sighed. Otherwise, we'd have the demonic qi in the city a bit more under control. Right now, Su Yuro's handling it alone, but her healing skills are no match for Zhang Fuli's. After a moment's thought, Moshi said, "Mengzi did say there was that reclusive healer in Lin An who knows rebirth. Maybe he could—" "There's no time for that now." Gumong spoke lightly, as if he wasn't interested in the reclusive healer Mengzi had mentioned in the slightest. Moshi sensed his indifference was about more than the imminent appearance of the demon blood beast. Rather, he had no faith in the legend Mengzi described at all. Moshi was certain that, even if there was time, nothing could induce Gumong to seek out Mengzi's reclusive cultivator. "Is it because you feel what Mengzi said might not be reliable?" Gumong paused, then smiled. "That's not what I said." Upon seeing Moshi about to ask another question, he pointed to a pile of wreckage in the throne room. "Ah, look over there." "That's Gumong, that's not suspicious at all. You're not telling us something?" He grabbed Moshi's arm and dragged him over. It was those golden incense burner beasts Murong Lian had custom made to curry favor with Murong Chen. The little golden braziers lay in the ruins, still doing their best to shout, "Your Imperial Majesty's fortune floods the heavens," and "Your Imperial Majesty's glory fills the realm." Listening to them, Gumong let out a long, mournful sigh. In the end, Murong Chen wanted too much. I'm not sure who could be Chonghua's emperor when we defeat the Liao kingdom, said Moshi. Lian Di is out of the running for sure. He said himself that his health is poor, and the ephemeras reduced him to an invalid. After everything's over, he plans to go to the fiefdom of Lin Yi to convalesce. But you can't rush things like this. Everyone has their own fate, and every nation has its own fortune. We'll cross the bridge when we come to it. There's no need to worry. He smiled. But you just said when we defeat the Liao Kingdom. You're so certain we can win? Pause for a moment while I ask, has anyone mentioned Lin Yi in this series yet? Is that the mention of Lin Yi? The first mention in the series? Moshi looked up, his gaze calm and gentle. With you, of course we can win. Gumong's eyes flashed with light, and he knocked on Moshi's chest. Ha ha, thanks for believing in me. Well, I think I can win too. No one knows the demon blood beast better than me, so you all have to listen to my orders in the battle tomorrow. This time, I'm the commander. He looked so smug, Moshi couldn't resist poking him in the forehead. You'll always be my commander. Gumong smiled in that bold way of his, yet seemed a little bashful. After a moment, he said, on that note, I feel like Su Yu. She's a bit odd. How so? Back when the sword demon Li Qingqian was making trouble, he said the Guosha of the Liao Kingdom went insane when he heard the peerless beauty Su Yu had married a man in Chonghua. He found more than 100 women who resembled Su Yu and sacrificed them all to that mountain. He said something like, what's so special about Su Yu? He could have as many beauties like her as he wanted. Moshi nodded. Exactly so. Li Qingqian's companion, Miss Hong Shao, met her end because of their resemblance. Gumong stroked his chin. But Moshi, don't you think there's a problem with this story? What? Think about it. How would any normal woman react if her former lover stormed his way to the gates of her country? Moshi considered. She might find a way to send word and beg for leniency. What else? She'd become nervous and worry about how to face him. You're right, Gumong said. But Madame Su hasn't shown any sign of unease. It's like she cares not one whit what the Liao Guosha is doing. She only sends more people to look for Medicine Master Jiang. Perhaps she and the Liao Guosha are a thing of the past. Now that she's Zhang Fuli's wife, it's reasonable for her to care more for Zhang Fuli's safety. Gumong waggled a finger at him. Incorrect. He pinched Moshi's cheek with a grin. Look at you. Your moral standards are too high. You always assess people's feelings according to social ethics. Yes, Su Yu is Zhang Fuli's wife, and I don't think she would betray Zhang Fuli. That's social ethics. But if Su Yu's involvement with the Guosha was as deep as Li Qingqian claimed, regardless of whether she's someone else's wife or mother, how could she ignore him when they met again as enemies? But Su Yu doesn't care, Gumong continued. I've watched her over the last few days. It seems she only feels two things toward the Guosha, fear and disgust. Gumong shook his head. That's not the attitude anyone would have toward a past lover. Well, it could be, or maybe there was a situation in which she was, forced into being his lover. Looking at him so serious, Moshi felt a touch of exasperation. And how would you know how the lady feels? Honestly, it's nothing to do with men or women. It's pure human nature. Gumong paused. Ah, think of it like this. When you thought I defected, before the battle at Dongting Lake, when you knew you were about to see me after I committed treason, how did you feel? Moshi blinked. It was definitely more than fear or disgust, right? Of course. Even now, Moshi could recall it with searing clarity. Profound pain and profound hope. Gumong's shadow dogging his days and haunting his nights. As if he was drowning in past tenderness, blinded by the unknown that lay before him. Moshi lowered his lashes and sighed. I see what you mean. So there's something off about Madame Su. I have 3 guesses, said Gumong. The first, Madame Su knows some secrets about the Liao Guoshe that outsiders don't. The second, Madame Su never reciprocated his affections at all, and Guoshe drove himself crazy all on his own. And the third? The third, Gumong said. Perhaps Li Qingqian misunderstood the Guoshe's motives. His ideas about the Guoshe and Madame Su were wrong from the beginning. Moshi widened his eyes. Gumong tapped his chin. To be honest, I'm leaning toward the third possibility. When we dealt with Li Qingqian, the sword demon dispersed after he saw Su Yuro's face, and she whispered something to him. I think the third is most likely. Su Yuro probably dispelled the assumption behind Li Qingqian's obsession with her, which was what turned him into a sword demon in the first place. That's why he thought it was all too ridiculous and dispersed into ashes the instant his willpower dissolved. How else could she break his mind with just her face and a few words? Moshi thought it over and nodded. It makes sense. Any further elaboration was cut off by a distant rumble of thunder. They both turned on reflex. A massive vortex of storm clouds had gathered overhead, its dark center shot through with forking lightning. A hole seemed to have been torn open in the sky. Pale light spilled down like heaven's blood onto the Liao's army's stationed troops. In that white light, bright enough to illuminate the deepest abyss, countless dark specks floated up from the Liao army's encampment and rose toward the rift in the heavens. Performing a quick sight-enhancing spell, Gumong took a closer look. When he saw what those dark specks were, his face turned an unpleasant shade of green. Fuck, that's the demon blood beast's rebirth ceremony. Gumong's lips moved, but his eyes never left those black dots. Voice low, he said, Those are living sacrifices floating up. They're butterfly-boned beauty feasts the Liao Kingdom has captured. The Liao Kingdom captured. What? Moshi exclaimed in disbelief. The so-called butterfly-boned beauty feasts were a tribe bearing ancient demon blood. In the wake of the long-ago battle between gods and demons, however, the gates to the demon realm had been forever closed to the mortal world. This demon tribe, abandoned in the human realm, could no longer reach the source of the demonic chi that nourished them. Slowly, their spiritual cores withered and their magic was lost. They became identical to, or even weaker than, regular humans. The only trait they retained from the demon tribe was their suitability for use as cultivation vessels. The demon blood beast is an evil creature refined using a method found in the fragmented records of the ancient demon tribe. It requires large amounts of demonic blood, Gumong explained. When I was in the Liao Kingdom, I read the scrolls on the demon blood beast very carefully. According to the stories, the demonic tribe must funnel their own spiritual chi into the beast. If mortals want to refine it themselves, they'd have to use sacrifices that carry the blood of the demon tribe. The most effective of these are butterfly-boned beauty feasts. Which is to say, the demon blood beast is raised on living people of this bloodline? Asked Moshi. Pretty much, Gumong said. More than 100,000 butterfly-boned beauty feasts are needed to refine one demon blood beast. Wasn't Li Qingqian's village destroyed because Liao soldiers were capturing butterfly-boned beauty feasts? I'd say they've been planning this for a long time. Those shadowy blue irises were filled with the light of the storm. Looks like the Liao kingdom wants a reckoning with us before daybreak. It won't wait till tomorrow. As he spoke, he tied the blue and gold silk ribbon Mu Ronglian had given to him over his forehead. A few wisps of hair came loose, falling over the merit ribbon. We're off to lead the troops. A faint smile hooked the corners of his mouth. Perhaps it was Moshi's imagination that, in the glow of the demon blood beast's light, Gumong's blue eyes seemed a bit wet. A shadow of foreboding crept into Moshi's heart. He found himself murmuring, Gumong. He thought Gumong wouldn't hear this low call, or that even if he did, Gumong might not respond. There, he was wrong. Gumong turned, his blue eyes shining with the fires of the battlefield in the distance. He gazed at Moshi in silence. Then he reached out to loop his arms around Moshi's shoulders, gathering him into a bruising embrace. Contained within the circle of those arms were too many things to name. Love, intimacy, comfort, encouragement, all the brilliant faith Gumong had afforded Moshi in the past. The press of their bodies felt so natural, as if those miserable and hopeless years of spying and treachery had never come between them. When Gumong drew back, his handsome face was flashing with a sharp, fiery light. After this battle, you need to take your Gumong Goga out for a drink. I require the best pear blossom white, or I'll be mightily displeased. Before Moshi could get a clear look at his face, he had turned away. Pulling Moshi along, he moved toward the command platform with the swiftness that brooked no argument. That's the end of the chapter. Y'all are right. The butterfly-boned beauty feasts never get a break. Also, it's weirdly kind of hard to say that over and over. Maybe I just need to use the acronym. So it's gotta be a Chu family thing to like pear blossom white wine. So we're on chapter 186, which is called Gumong and the Demon Blood Beast. Though their generals had estimated the final battle would come the next day, everyone knew it was a guess. The war between Chonghua and Liao was like a firecracker whose fuse had been lit, ready to detonate at any moment. No one was thus surprised when Gumong called an urgent assembly. Many soldiers had run to the drill ground unbidden the instant that ghoulish light had appeared. They knew they'd have no sleep tonight. They'd meet Liao in their first major battle before dawn. If they could kill the demon blood beast as it emerged, the Liao army would retreat on its own. But if they couldn't, of course we can. So Gumong, their commander, had said. He hadn't said it like an order, but a promise. Gumong wasn't particularly tall or broad, and the suffering he'd endured had left him alarmingly thin. But the figure he cut, with the scarlet plume of his helmet billowing in the wind, was every bit as galvanizing as it had been in days of yore. When he spoke to the soldiers, his voice rang. Once, I stood right here and put my life on the line with my brothers through 39 battles, big and small. This is the 40th one. Before every battle, I made you the same promise. I said, I will take you home. I kept this promise 38 times. At Phoenix Cry Mountain, I broke my word. I failed to keep my promise. I did not succeed. I left 70,000 men behind at that battle, and getting gravestones for them took me fucking ages haggling with His Imperial Majesty. Gumong spoke with his hands behind his back, his voice steady. He was doing his best to don his old ease and charisma before the troops. But as Moshi and Muronglian stood beside him, both could see that his eyes glimmered with tears. I made good on my promise 38 times. Gumong's eyes were too bright, as he said, and I broke it once. This is the 40th time I'm making it. If you trust me, heed my call and follow me. Let's go defeat that newborn whelp once and for all, and then I'll take you home. And he doesn't say this part. I'll take you home, along with those 70,000 dead souls, along with a peace that will last through the ages. As long as you're willing to believe in me again, I, Gumong, will deliver on my promise, whether in life or in death. I will make myself worthy of being named your General Gu. I'll take you home. The soldiers spread out beneath the platform didn't speak. Their faces were upturned, gazing solemnly at their master in the northern frontier, their warrior of the Empire, their scarred and wounded commander. Yet in the next moment, their armor flashed with light, and their weapons thudded into the ground. A fierce roar seemed to shake loose from the bowels of the earth itself, rushing into the world from thousands of chests. Together in life or death, it echoed like a vast wave, spreading across the 9 provinces. Together in life or death. In Moshi's younger days, he'd always thought a nation had to have a ruler. That was what he'd been taught since he was little. Yet Chonghua had lost Murong Chen, and it was united like never before. Oh. Wait, who? Oh, Rumi, you missed the first part of the stream, that's right. Murong Chen, wait, I'm just, he performed some sort of, like, final act to bring out the demon blood beast, and it, like, crushed his core or his souls or something like that. It was kind of like, all right, bye. Yeah, Blue, thank you. That's what happened. I'm gonna go back a second. In Moshi's younger days, he'd always thought a nation had to have a ruler. That was what he'd been taught since he was little. Yet Chonghua had lost Murong Chen, and it was united like never before. Their recent calamity was like a dagger cutting away the nation's rotten flesh. There was pain, yes, but it had also awakened those who had been stubbornly asleep, allowing them to take a good look at the hearts of those around them who didn't know the difference between good and evil. The great army set out as one, their armor glittering like dense scales. Swords and spiritual horses bore their masters away, one after another. The cultivators were like stars streaming together to form the Milky Way, a great gleaming river that grew broader as their numbers swelled, charging into the sky. Muronglian hummed inquisitively. What's happening down there? High in the air, Gumong looked downward and saw the gates of Chonghua City wide open. Beneath their army aloft on their swords, countless bamboo warriors and strange beasts were streaming over the ground, trailing the main forces as they stormed toward the final battlefield. At their head was none other than Yue Chunqing. He was followed by more cultivators, nobles, and even civilian residents of the city. They poured from the capital gates under their own command, charging toward the Liao kingdom's encampment. Shocked, Gumong gazed at the strange, unprecedented sight. This stream of people flowed forth without cease, with no distinction between rich or poor, noble or common. The people came together, rushing toward the enemy. I was wrong, Gumong murmured. What? Said Muronglian. This time, they don't need me to bring them home, Gumong said, the rims of his eyes slightly red. This is our home. He looked toward the banks of the Fushui River in the middle distance. There stood the largest barrier protecting Chonghua's capital, the Imperial Barrier. Behind that translucent wall, tens of thousands of the Liao Kingdom's demonic cultivators waited, as well as the evil demon blood beast on the verge of being reborn. Gumong brought his fingertips together and urged his sword on faster, rushing toward the lake where they would make their final stand. In the dark, the Liao Kingdom's resurrection array shone more and more clearly. It was absorbing the sacrificed lives on the other side of the great Fushui River, emitting a light that grew brighter as they watched. A massive, ghostly silhouette had risen in the middle of the formation, as lofty as any mountain peak. The form of the demon blood beast as it was resurrected. Gumong hovered at the edge of the Imperial Barrier, his robes fluttering as he gazed at the fledgling form of this massive beast. His temples throbbed. That vision of Chen Tong from centuries ago flashed before his eyes once more. Hundreds of years ago, Chen Tong had fought a life-or-death battle, just like today. Then, as now, they had met in battle near the water, on a riverbank. Chen Tong's sharp brows were drawn low as he stared coldly at Hua Poan. Your evil cannot be born. Why should I spare you? The agony ripping through Gumong's head forced him to close his eyes. This vision differed from the ones he'd had before. Now that he had his memories and his mind, he understood why he saw visions of Chen Tong from centuries in the past. 8 years ago, he had entered the Liao Kingdom under orders from his emperor and uncovered its black magic secrets, in particular those related to the demon blood beast. He had spent a frightfully long time gaining the trust of the demon blood beast's highest-ranked overseer and built a close friendship with him. During that time, Gumong had gone often to look at what remained of the demon blood beast's vital spirit. Although back then the demon blood beast was only a cloud of damaged silvery fog without its souls, power, or memories, Gumong had felt its potent malevolent energy. Guxiong, take a look. We've spent years thinking up ways to wake the beast up again. Once it recovers, all of the 9 provinces will fall before our great Liao. Gumong had stared at that silvery fog and smiled without batting an eye. Oh, yes. The overseer hadn't been exaggerating. The demon blood beast returned to life would be a catastrophe. Even if the 27 nations of the cultivation realm banded together to resist it, the casualties would be unimaginable. At the time, Gumong hadn't yet discovered his own emperor's true intent, but he knew that a terrifying killing weapon like the demon blood beast would be a terrible danger no matter which country or person possessed it. Although he might help his emperor strategize means of seizing the demon blood beast, he wouldn't hand over that kind of power to Murong Chen so easily, no matter how much he trusted him. The first time Gumong saw the demon blood beast's silvery mist rise in the Liao Kingdom's secret chamber, He'd already wondered if there was a method to guarantee the outcome he wanted. If there came a day when the demon blood beast was reborn, whether resurrected by the Liao kingdom and loyal to Liao, or recovered by Chonghua and allegiant to Chonghua, he wished to be able to destroy it with the least possible sacrifice. That would be the safest way for everyone. In the days and nights that followed, Gumong thought through many possible hypotheticals, but in the end, he could see only one path forward: the heart resonance technique. It wasn't a particularly complex or extraordinary magic. In fact, his goal when he'd first developed this technique was childishly naive. He'd once had an excessively beautiful dream. Despite knowing how vast and uncertain his future was, he'd still hoped to share a life with his little Shidi. It would be just as they used to talk about, half in jest. They'd have a home together, with a couple cats or dogs, and plant a peach tree in the courtyard. They'd shed their armor and return to the fields together, grow old together, die together. And even though he knew it was impossible, Gumong couldn't stop himself from secretly creating this heart resonance technique. Using this magic, he could share his mind with Moshi. As long as they both were willing, they could see all sorts of the things that had happened in each other's past. They could share each other's memories, feelings, wishes, their whole lives. It was a spell that required limitless trust and intimacy, absurdly idealistic. Gumong had never thought he'd actually make use of it. He had only been playing, bleeding off some of his own beautiful reveries. But back then, as he stood before the demon blood beast's inchoate form, inchoate? Forget how you say that. He understood. His destiny had already been written. The first and last use of the heart resonance technique wouldn't be one of companionship, but of farewell. While the demon blood beast was weak, he took the chance to stealthily cast this spell onto its spiritual form. The instant he'd activated the technique, he'd felt darkness rush into his bloodstream like the tide. The black magic spells carved upon his bones were roused by the demon blood beast, and demonic chi surged into his body. This was the demon blood beast's filthy life. The evil creature's soul, forged from the lives of countless sacrifices, butterfly-boned beauty feasts, and commoners alike, lived within him. At that moment, he'd seemed to become one with it. He saw how Hua Po-an refined the beast hundreds of years ago, using a ravine as the crucible, heavenly lightning as the flame, and tens of thousands of living people, as the raw matter. At last, he succeeded in creating this fiendish and wicked creature. Its howls rent the sky. He was it, and it was he. Through the demon blood beast's eyes, Gumong saw the past. He saw Hua Po-an standing before the demon refining peak, saw that ghoulish face from hundreds of years ago. The ruler of Chonghua reduced me to a slave while elevating his Murong clan as nobles. How ridiculous. Hua Po-an had once whispered to the fledgling form of the demon blood beast, pouring all of his hatred into it. For as long as I can remember, I've always wondered this. Why was I a low-born servant, while others were born into wealth? Those nasty old men told me that this was my destiny, that my life was fated to be like this. But is that true? I worked harder than those nobles. I have more innate talent than any of them. What kind of destiny is this? Is this not strange? Hua Po-an's features twisted and warped. Such an evil beast could only have been born from such virulent hate. Jing Chen, did you know? When I was a slave, I read many books in Chonghua's Cultivation Academy. I dug deep down to the roots of this nation, little by little. I wanted to know why those named Murong were nobles while we, beneath them, were servants. Yet when I found my answer, I couldn't bear it. Shall I tell you? Long, long ago, Chonghua was founded by two brothers, both generals. Side by side, they led their soldiers and conquered a vast territory to create this nation. They reduced the rebellious denizens of the countries they conquered to slaves and stripped them of their right to cultivate, so that they could never take up arms and overthrow the new nation they built. But the killing never came to an end. One mountain wasn't enough for two tigers. Those brothers had faced death together. Yet after the temporary peace brought by their conquest, they reached a stalemate. Who would rule? After turning their blades on each other, tricking each other, deceiving each other, the elder brother lost. His younger brother beheaded every single one of the defeated general's female family members and decreed that any descendants of his line would be the lowest of slaves. Their spiritual cores were destroyed, and they were branded so they could never free themselves. I am a descendant of that branch of the founding family. How dissatisfying, no? He burst into laughter. The Murong clan's blood also runs through my veins. But because of one man's failure, one man's selfishness, and two men's conflict, I was born into the state. Into a lowly life where I don't even know my own surname, Hua Poan said bitterly. Tell me, were you in my place? Could you make peace with this? The demon blood beast Jing Chen shot up a beam of fiery light from the crucible, as if in answer to his question. Hua Poan's eyes shone brighter. The entire world seemed to burn to ashes in those mad eyes. I've never been content with this kind of life. Even losing control of my spiritual core in the beginning was part of my plan. I was sure that ridiculous man Chen Tong was soft-hearted. I knew he couldn't bring himself to kill me. He begged the emperor for leniency on my behalf and made an exception for me to practice cultivation, all because I was sweet and pitiable. The firelight from the demon refining peak licked up like the tongues of resentful ghosts, dancing madly as they shot out of hell. It lit Hua Poan's face, revealing greed, hatred, ambition. Gumong saw the demon blood beast's first glimpse of the human world, the image Hua Poan immersed the creature in. Jing Chen, I created you to help me reclaim Chonghua. I too can be king of this nation. The demon blood beast was an evil creature forged from hatred and greed. The flesh of dead men had become its flesh, and Hua Poan's mad ambition had become its ambition. When its evil heart resonated with Gumong's, that terrifying bloodthirstiness was nearly enough to drag Gumong with it into hell. Gumong had felt deep disgust, but he didn't sever the connection. Also he could... ... The bugle sounded and the drums of war thundered. Gumong turned to see the vast and majestic troops of Chonghua, his brothers and comrades, those men with whom he traversed life and death, those souls he'd promised to bring home, those soldiers who called him General Gu. Sparks swirled up from the battlefield, about to go up in the flames of war. His heart pounded, holding a secret known to no one else. Of course he could win. Of course he'd succeed. Who in the world knew the demon blood beast better than he did? Even Hua Poan himself was merely its master. He hadn't shared his soul with it, merged his life with it. Defense cultivators, reinforce the Imperial barrier on both sides. Healers' squadrons should be the eye of the formation. Winged cavalry, disrupt the Liao troop formations on the north side. Northern Frontier Army, with me. Yes, sir. Gumong narrowed his eyes, looking down at the Liao encampment, their blades shining in the moonlight. Across the great, surging river, Across a barrier that stretched from the heavens down to the earth, the armies of Chonghua and Liao stood opposed. The Liao kingdom had been given plenty of time to prepare for Chonghua's attack, and assembled swiftly. Gumong looked out over the armor that shimmered like fish scales behind the barrier, and knew the slaughter would begin as soon as he led his soldiers through this screen. He took a deep breath. Bathed in the pristine light of the moon, he commanded sharply, "We advance through the barrier." "Yes, sir." On his command, the cultivators of Chonghua swooped down like a great falcon. The moment they crossed the barrier, black magic spells from the enemy cultivators shot toward them like a sky full of bristling arrows. Countless black magic beasts were released from their keepers' hands. Black-winged corpse hounds and demonic falcons with venomous beaks, barreling madly toward the cultivators of Chonghua like a chaotic swarm of poison darts. On the ground below, the bamboo warrior army led by Yue Chunqing rolled forward like a herd of hardy grassland horses. They forded the surging Fushui River that protected the city and streamed toward the Liao encampment on the opposite shore. Chonghua's vanguard was like a sharp knife hurled toward the Liao army's gleaming shield, the collision sending sparks flying as the dagger's point stabbed at the army's core. A pike struck from behind this shield, the counter-strike from the Liao kingdom's offensive cultivators. Roars from 1,000 throats shook the skies, and fire and blood streaked the air. Attack. The sky lit up with fireworks like countless shooting stars falling to earth. The battle was monstrous, but beneath the velvet curtain of night, it created a majestic, dazzling spectacle. The blood of dead soldiers dyed the banks of the Fushui River a blushing pink. Gumong felled a demonic bird soaring toward him with the strike of his dagger, then cried, "Don't get bogged down at the front. Follow me to the demon blood beast's foraging grounds." Beside the site where the demon blood beast had been created was an immense cage for holding sacrifices, filled to bursting with the butterfly-boned beauty feasts the Liao kingdom had seized and bred over decades. Liao's soldiers pushed them into the center of the demon refining furnace, one after another. These humans were treated like ore for smelting swords, like pieces of marble or any raw material. They were made to jump into the furnace, the source of energy for the demon blood beast's resurrection. "Mom," one prisoner whimpered. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." These human sacrifices wailed in grief as they went to their deaths, but the people of Liao felt not the slightest twinge of conscience at their piteous begging. They had seen the demon blood beast's fledgling silhouette and could already sense the all-powerful evil beast it would become. Yelling, pushing, and prodding, they sent those living humans with a few drops of ancient demon blood into the churning furnace. A woman with exquisite features saw that it was soon to be her turn, and fat tears rolled down her lovely cheeks. Her tear tracks glimmered golden, the telltale sign of a butterfly-boned beauty feast. "Spare me." She grabbed a Liao cultivator in despair. "I'm with child. I want my babe to live. Please. I'm begging you." But the only answer she received was the Liao cultivator's raucous laughter. "Even better. Pregnant ones have stronger demonic chi." The woman's eyes brimmed with tears. As her desperation reached its peak, a beam of blue light shot down from the sky. A magnificent barrier sprang up from the ground, enclosing the butterfly-boned beauty feasts behind it. Astonished and overjoyed, the woman looked up to see a group of Chonghua's cultivators swoop in on their swords. The commander at their head wore silver armor and black boots, his eyes a gleaming blue, the red plumes on his helmet fluttering in the wind. That blue and gold ribbon that represented the blood of heroes was tied neatly beneath his whipping bangs. It was Gumong. son of the Wangshu line and general of the Northern Frontier Army. At his side was Shihajun, Moshi, in gold-trimmed black robes that billowed in the wind, as well as Wangshujun, Muronglian, wearing sapphire trimmed in gold and an expression of careless disdain. Muronglian clucked his tongue. Using living people to make a demon beast. Disgusting. They're even more despicable than me. I'll admit I'm impressed. While he spoke, Moshi summoned Shuairan. The soaring snake whip cracked through the air, winding itself securely around the black magic cage, trapping these living sacrifices and shattering it. Lowering his black eyes, he said to those shocked and suspicious sacrifices, "Run." The sacrifices froze for several moments before they realized what had happened. Like a scattered school of fish, they began to rush about in all directions. Some brought their hands together and kowtowed to the heavens, bawling. Moshi commanded a defense squadron to protect others as they fled toward safety. For a time, all they heard were the sobs of the freed prisoners as they cried, "Thank you. Thank you, esteemed cultivators." The pregnant woman bowed to them again and again. Only when a defense cultivator of Changhua urged her to run did she take one last tearful glance back before turning to leave. Yet just as Gumong raised a hand to put an end to this Liao squadron in one swift strike, a shrill, keening melody split the air. Gumong was the quickest to react. His head snapped up. Feng Bo? A transparent figure came soaring toward them out of the distance. He was mounted on a sword, high in mid-air. As he drew closer, they could see he wore white robes, his lapels hanging carelessly open, holding a polished copper holy weapon with a fluttering white ribbon. He looked up. His face was achingly handsome, with glistening black eyes and a rakish smile. Even Moshi and Muronglian were stunned speechless. Gumong? The ghostly figure standing on the sword was indeed Gumong. A Gumong who was young and bold and formidable before he had offered himself up for black magic tempering. What's happening here?" exclaimed Muronglian. After the shock had passed, Moshi realized what they were seeing. His eyes reddened as he stared fixedly at the specter from the past. "The nine-eyed Qin," he rasped. "What?" "The Liao Guosha's nine-eyed Qin," Moshi said. "There are 9 eyes set within it, and each contains a cultivator's power." His fingertips trembled, pressing deep into his palms. His voice was heavy with the weight of his hatred, so low it was nearly inaudible. This eye was made from the techniques of Changhua that he stripped out of Gumong. Muronglian flinched. He slanted a glance at Gumong, who seemed unaffected. The words stripped out tasted of blood and suffering, filled with the suggestion of being flayed open in a prison cell, of the agony of having his spiritual energy torn from his bones. Yet it was as though the words had little to do with him. Gumong stared at that phantom of himself that could still use the techniques of Changhua and summon the holy weapon Feng Bo, and spoke with perfect calm. "The Guosha's handling the demon blood beast's resurrection ceremony at a distance, yet it seems he can't sit still anymore. He sent me to deal with me." No one said anything. "I look pretty handsome." "Just average," replied Muronglian. "Not quite as handsome as me." Gumong chuckled. Before he could say more, he saw his phantom raise the suana, his fingertips poised over its holes. Gumong knew that pose too well. "Activate the soundproofing barriers," he shouted in worry. The cultivators behind him did as he commanded, but not everyone was fast enough. Only half of them had activated their barriers before the phantom Gumong began to play. Ah, though the sound of the Swana was thin and reedy, it cut through the skies, descending upon the entirety of the assembled forces. Those who hadn't managed to create their barrier formations screamed piteously, tumbling off their swords and plummeting to the ground. Some merely... I'm going to restart that sentence. Some merely bled from every orifice, while others fell unconscious immediately. Merely. Merely. Gumong swore softly. Even if he'd recovered his mind, his spiritual energy was gone for good. All he could summon was the demonic dagger, deadly enough in one-on-one fights, but unable to hold a candle to the sound of Feng Bo in battle. The scene swiftly devolved into chaos. The demonic Liao Kingdom cultivators Chonghua's forces had held at bay exploded forward in retaliation, and the tides of the battle turned. A few Liao cultivators overtook the human sacrifices that had fallen behind and recaptured the screaming butterfly-boned beauty feasts, throwing them one by one into the spiritual energy furnace. The molten pool inside was already too dazzling to look at directly, and within the nearby resurrection array, the figure of the demon blood beast grew more and more distinct. More! Grab more! A high-ranking Liao cultivator shouted frantically. It's about to be reborn. It's about to be reborn. There's just a bit left. Moshi reached for Tuntian, but its power was far too much. He usually only summoned the weapon a handful of times per year, and he had already used that capacity to its limit. He and Tuntian had both been depleted when he fought with Murong Chen. It wouldn't answer his call. It was then that Moshi heard another string of notes from behind him, a sound as capable of disrupting armies as Feng Bo. He and Gumong looked back in shock. The one playing this disruption music was Murong Lian. That's the end of the chapter. And I cannot read any more today. I'm processing all of the things that have been told to us and implied by like that last chapter. Do we think that the Liao Kingdom Guosha is Hua Puan? Or do we I don't really know. The visions of Hua Puan and Chen Tong, I'm still not entirely sure what that's like, if they're still in existence somehow. I'm kind of feeling like they are, but I'm not really sure. I don't know exactly how that's going to come into play. I feel like I have to re-listen and I'm the one who read it, so... but my one question is, did I understand correctly? Did the Guasha take Gumong's original eyes for the chin? Each eye has the power... Wait, no. Or are they... Because each eye has the powers of a different cultivator. So would... Like, is that why his eyes are blue? Does he have new, different eyes? Or am I like... Okay. So, then are Aspen, are they figurative eyes? I thought it said somewhere that he literally took the eyes of cultivators, and that was where the power was stored. Or are the eyes from, like, different people? Other than... I don't know. He did... Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm... Either way, the chin has... One of the eyes has Gumong's, like, power in it. But oh, the eyes represent spiritual cores. I totally thought that he literally was, like, taking their eyes out and then storing, like, the power in their eyes. But he takes their cores. And, okay. Okay. Because I was sitting here thinking, is that why Gumong's eyes are blue? Because, wow, that's gruesome. But I guess that's not exactly what happened there. But because I think the explanation has just been that his eyes are blue because of being tempered with the beast, and that he's like wolf-like, and that's why. But I was suddenly like struck by a notion of like, what if this is the real reason? That just really kind of I was very concerned for a moment there. Choosing to turn them into eyes is even freakier. Yes. Um, some of y'all were having what looked like a really interesting discussion during this, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and look at what you all said because I'm intrigued. Um, Also, I'm just like, Gumong, what are you planning? Like, what is the deal? Like, of course he kept something a secret, of course. And just the image of like the younger version of him that he has to fight himself, I can't. Meat bun, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that. Um Also, I'm still thinking about I'm still thinking about the little throwaway line that Murong Lian is gonna like retire to Lin Yi. Like, okay, just mention Lin Yi, I guess, Meat Bun. Um, Blue, yeah. If anyone can remember the particular volume that like really explained the chin, I want to go back and find that part again and see where it explains like the whole eye thing. Yeah, the illusion of him being his younger self. That's yeah, there's something so fucked up about that. Um, but yeah, it's Meat Bun, so of course. It was one or two. Okay, I feel like in one or two it's introduced, but then in a later volume, maybe it was explained more. But I don't remember. Um, heck, I'll probably end up doing a reread eventually. Um, in the part where we see the torture Gumong had to go through. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Meat Bun is meat bunning as usual. Um, when they went to bring the soul wisp. Yeah. I can't remember exactly when that happens, but yeah, I totally just I like I was reading about the eyes and I was like very concerned about them literally grabbing his eyes, but it sounds like that's not what happened. And I'm just glad about that. That's our one little well, we had some very happy beautiful moments in this stream, but then quickly all this happened. So I don't know. Um but yeah, when we come back on Wednesday, we're going to be on page 275 for chapter 187, which is called The Weapon of Warrior Soul Mountain. The Weapon of Warrior Soul Mountain. Not like, are we talking about Murong Lian's weapon, spiritual weapon, or the instrument that he's playing? Or do we know what this weapon is already? Because okay. Um, cool. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you for bearing with me with, the mess that was my internet for a moment. Um, I'm really excited for Wednesday's stream to find out more. But yeah, I will see y'all then. Bye.